Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome back to the webinar series on the occasion of PlayStreet's 10th year anniversary. As our regular attendees will know by now, this is our seventh webinar in the series. And for those of us who are joining us for the first time today, please feel free to check out our previous webinars on our YouTube channel. My name is Pranjali, and I'm a special educator and psychologist at PlayStreet. As you all know, PlayStreet is an organization that provides educational services to help the child with special needs become independent and live up to their potential. We offer parent empowerment programs, integrated schooling programs, and a variety of clinical services. This year marks the 10th running year of PlayStreet. So we decided to bring you a series of 10 webinars which will talk about small things to do at home to see many big changes. Today's expert is Abhishek Phillip, who will be talking about conversational skills and strategies that parents can adopt at home to build conversational skills. Abhishek is a speech language pathologist who enjoys working with children. He strongly believes that every child is unique, and if we create a loving, understanding, and creative environment around them, we can bring out their capabilities and strengths and help them achieve greatest of success. I will now hand over to Abhishek. If you have any questions, kindly use the chat box. We will have a small Q&A at the end of the webinar. Abhishek?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. And in this webinar, we are going to look at how conversational skills develop in children and what is the importance of having good social communication conversation skills. And also we are going to look at what are the tips, some of the tips and strategies that parents and professionals they can adopt or practice at home to improve their child's social communication skills. So this is going to be around 40 minutes kind of a webinar. And at the end of the webinar, please, you can ask questions and we will try our best to answer those. Before we go and see how we can improve a child's conversation skills or how to have a good social communication skills, it is important for us to see what is not a good social conversation, right? So I have a video here and I will play the video. At the end of the video, I would like you, participant to give your thoughts about what you observed from the video. So I'll just play it here.
Hey, Jonathan, I got a puppy yesterday. His name's Max. He's a standard poodle and he's really cute.
Oh, I have a dog too. His name's Cecil, and we take him for walks and stuff.
Yeah,
Oh, and Cecil? Yeah, he goes up to my bed to go to sleep.
yeah, and he
Oh, my dog's really cool because we like take him for walks and we run with him.
Let's see what everyone's thinking.
keeps interrupting me. He won't let me tell him about my dog.
I want to tell Sam all about my dog.
He doesn't give me a chance to talk.
Like, what did you observe from the video? Can you give me some observations? That's right. The other person is not giving chance to talk. Okay. That's right. It's more of one-sided conversation, continuous interrupting. Nice. That's right. The other kid didn't get a chance to talk. Okay. Great. So those are some good observations that I can see that. So some of these things are really happening in our day-to-day life also. It can happen with our during conversation with our colleagues. It can be our boss. It can be our friends or relatives who doesn't give you a chance to talk, and how bad it looks like when you would feel when you face that. And next time when you meet that person, of course, what happens is that we'll try to avoid that conversation. So it is essential for us to have a good social conversation skills. And now we're going to see that what are the components that comes under the social. So these are the five social communication components we need to have in our components that comprises. The first one is the language skills. In that we have the words that we talk, and we understand what other person is trying to say. It comes with the vocabularies, and it comes with the pronouns, the nouns, and the verbs, and all these things comes under the language skills. Then comes the non-verbal language skills. When you communicate with another person, of course we use our body language, our facial expression, and we use our hands, like how I'm doing right now. And we use these body language to communicate our thoughts and what we wanted to say. And if you also know that, when we talk, we use our non-verbal language skills and also our verbal language skills to communicate. So under the social understanding, we have the next factor, whereas when you talk to someone or when you have a conversation with someone, there is always a shared attention between two parties. And that is important, and that is considered as the basic skill or basic a fact that they need to have when you have a conversation with someone. And also we need to have a perspective taking, like what other person is thinking, what other person's thoughts are, so that we can respect that and take into consideration during conversation. Then comes pragmatics, where we have the rules, the social rules that we obey, we use when you have conversation. Like every culture has different social rules. Like, for example, when we have social conversation with someone, we pay attention to that person's body language. Another one is that when especially in Indian culture, we touch the person's feet before we talk and have a conversation. And that goes different from each culture, let's say in Western culture or Eastern culture. And there are different set of social rules they follow. And that is also important to keep in mind when we have an interaction with another person. So then comes the verbal communication, where we take turns to talk to other person. And also we use communication for various purposes, like we ask questions, we negotiate, we use communication we joke, and we share, we say sarcasm, and all those things are different forms of communicative functions. So these are the components of social communication. Now, we are going to see why we need to have a good social communication skills. So the first one is that when you have a good social communication skills or social and conversation skills, it creates an identity of you in that society and in your group. And it also creates respect and everything. So it creates an identity. And when you have good conversation skills, it will help a child to have to make friends, and also it will help a child to keep friends, so they can negotiate better and they can resolve conflict or the fights between friends, and all these things. It's a part of social skills. And a sense of agency. A child who has good conversation or good social skills know that they can have an impact in the society in terms of communication. And so when the child says something, the child know that it has consequences. It can be bad or good. It has consequences. So the child keep that in mind when the child communicates with another person. So the last one is the well-being of the person. So it can be the emotional needs, physical needs, and also the social needs. The child communicates for different purposes. When these needs are met, the child's well-being also improves. So social communication is an important factor that we need to help the child to achieve. So we are going to see how social conversation develops in children. So starting off with, you can see that the first phase is the nonverbal phase, where the children begin to have an interaction with another person. And the next phase is the pre-verbal phase. And the third phase is the verbal phase. So, and I have created some examples for everyone to understand how it happens. So we're going to see how a nonverbal stage of conversation look like. So in this video, it's an interaction between a child and the mother, and the child is trying to trying to transfer the cookies from one tray to another tray and see how these two people are interacting. This is an amazing example of how two individuals are communicating each other without saying any word. So are they having a conversation? Yes, they're having a conversation non-verbally. And something you can notice here is that the child is clearly communicating to his mother. And if you can see in the picture also, he's looking at the mother and he looks back, looks at the cookie, and he does that back and forth between the mother and the cookies. So at this phase, the child intentionally look at the person and they reach out, grab things. So that's the way they communicate at this moment, and they create a conversation. This is a beautiful example of a nonverbal stage of conversation skills. So I'd like to explain you some more bit about this after we go to the further slides. We will come back again. So now we are going to see how does a pre-verbal stage of conversation is going to look like. During pre-verbal stage of conversational stage, what happens is that child will begin to use some words, and to supplement his communication, to support his communication, he is also going to use his body language. He uses his hands so that the message becomes more complete. All right, so let's watch this video.
We need to work on that, right? Yes, okay. Did you understand it though? No. Okay. All right. Huh? Oh, not this one. This is the grand finale of it. Yeah, that's the last one. That's what I was wondering. I don't know what they're gonna do next season because they did some stuff this time. Exactly what I was thinking. Oh yeah. Right, don't bring that in. You know what I'm saying? Don't do the same stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah. Like go somewhere else with that, but don't break here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what I said. And then it was like, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, what in the world? But don't do that here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Really? I thought the same thing. We think a lot alike, huh? Oh, that's crazy. Right.
This is a beautiful video about a beautiful interaction between the child and his father. I think they're watching a football match on the TV. See how well they're connected to each other, and a good joint attention. He's looking at the TV and looking at the father, and he's also trying to say something, and the father is trying to understand what the child is trying to say. That's another important thing we can notice here. And there are other facts like good turn-taking skills, and also there's a good connection between the father and the child. So you can see that the child is beginning to talk. There are a lot of blabbering, like you can see in the lot of jargons in his speech, but also he's trying to complement with some words and also using his body language. So this is what happens in a pre-verbal stage of conversational skills. Okay, so when the child reaches verbal level, so the child will try to communicate more with words, add more words into his communication, and also use signs to support that. Let's look at this example of a child and the child's father. And this girl and the father, they are building a house using the blocks. And you can see that their interaction, I put in as a script. And you can see this, like the Tina said house to her father by looking at him. When she and her father finished building one, father responded back to her by saying, a house. She repeated, house, looking at father with smile. Father acknowledged her response by saying, beautiful house. So with few words, they are having a conversation, and in a well-connected manner. So this is what happens in a verbal level, and this is going to improve as the child's age increase and the child acquire language skills. The child learn more words, the child combine words to phrases, and the child will begin to ask questions. And all those sort of things will happen in the further stages, some of which I will be explaining in the later slides. So if one thing we need to understand here, when does a conversation begin? A conversation begins when, let's say, when the partner or the child's parent or the caregiver, when they initiate a conversation and the child respond to that, then a conversation is started or conversation begins. Or it goes the same way also when the child initiate a conversation and the parent respond to that. That's when we can start a conversation. So responding to each other's conversational attempts or communication intents, it's important for us to start a conversation. When that does not happen, of course, conversation, we can't start one. So this is like kind of a cheat sheet, like I can call it. So, I can create a better understanding for you. What are the skills we need to keep in mind when we are going to have a conversation with the child? So I would also like the parents or the professional to keep this in mind when you do this. And also if you can adopt this factors in your day-to-day practice, also would be really beneficial. So I've used this analogy of a sphere, and in the sphere has different layers, and the most inner layer is the white one, and this white is the white layer or the white core, the innermost core is called the attunement. It's something the conversation begins with. We call it as attunement. And attunement is something as the connection that you can create between the partner and the child. Without the connection, there is no conversation. So, and there is no, you can't create a connection when you play. it's going to be difficult even if you try to play with the child. So attunement is, or the connection that you can create between the child and the parent is the first factor we need to look into. And moving on to the next phase is that we need to slow down. So most of the time I have noticed that in my sessions when the parent and the child interacts, so the child will be playing something and the father will be like, or the mother will be like, oh, what is that? What is this? And what is that? Moving very quickly without looking at the child's space. So this is an important factor that we need to keep in mind, that we need to go down to the child's pace to have this connection, to keep the conversation going. And because it will be too difficult for the child to come up to your pace and follow up. So it's always best to slow down to the child's pace to keep going with the conversation. So the next layer is the orange layer. We have observe, pause, and listen. So when you have a conversation, these are the three facts we need to keep in mind. So some of the examples you might have seen before, like let's say in this picture itself, like when the father was helping the child to build this house using blocks, how the father was, look at how the father is responding to the child. The father is going down to the child's level, like of eye contact, so that the father can observe what the child is trying to say. And also the father will wait for the child to say something or some child to respond back to some of maybe a question. And the father will also listen what the child is trying to say. So same goes with the other example also. Like you must have seen how the parents were very observant. They paused and they listened what the child wanted to say. So this is something we need to keep in mind. Most of the time what happens is that parents or the caregivers, they miss this and they expect the child to have a conversation. So most importantly, I would say that it's the pause. Most of the time what happens is that the parents want the child to do things very quickly. So they won't give adequate time for the child to respond back. So it can be a word or it can be some like a body language. So the parents need to be really observant to look at the body language so that we know what the child is trying to say. So observe, pause, and listen. And then comes the communicative intent, where the child, we need to listen to what the child is trying to say. Is the child trying to say something verbally, or it can be non-verbally? What is the child is trying to say? Is it something to request? Is something to protest? Is he asking a question? Or is he maybe he wants something more? So what is the child is trying to ask? So we need to look at that factor also. Then comes the experience. This is one factor we need to also keep in mind, which is that the more the child gets social experience, the better the child's social skills are going to be, because we are going to improve the child's dynamic intelligence. So which you can learn more from the previous presentation, which we done a few weeks back about guiding relationship and everything. So in that you can learn about this. So what I was trying to say is that the more social experience you can create, the better your social skills are going to be. So same with conversation skills. The more you talk with different people, your conversation skills are going to improve. And then comes the perspective taking. Perspective taking is like being in other person's understanding other person's emotion, other person's need and everything. Imagine that you're having a conversation with someone on the phone and the child is keep interrupting you in between. How does that feel? So most of the time you would have thought, I wish my child would have understood that, okay, I am busy, I'm doing something. So that is perspective taking. So perspective taking comes with experience and with exposure. So the child know, okay, this is something I should not do. Or let's say when you are have to have a meeting with the boss, and when we see that the boss is looking upset, definitely we wouldn't be interested to go and talk to him or ask a question, something. So we'll give some time, we'll go back maybe sometime later when he's looking fine. So that is perspective taking. So being in other person's space, understanding other person's position, other person's emotion and everything, that comes under perspective taking. So it goes back and forth from the core to the top. So keep this in mind when you have conversation or when you want to have interaction with someone. It can be with an adult also, but most importantly with children, keep this in mind before you start. So, and what leads a conversation? So most of the time we think that questions are the only ones we can lead a conversation with. Most of the time, what is that? What is this? And what is going to happen? But there are some questions we need to avoid, or there are something we need to avoid in terms of questions. So some of which are called conversation stoppers. Conversation stoppers are like, let's say a child and the father is reading a book. The father keeps on asking, what is this? What is that? What's the boy doing? Where is the cat? What the girl is doing? The father repeatedly asks questions without giving the child to turn, giving a child turn to talk or reply back. When this happens, of course, the child becomes like feel left out, and the child will definitely going to close the book, and maybe the child walk away. So, and parents expect that, okay, the child is not interacting with you. Of course, when this happens, no one likes that, to be questioned too much. Like, let's say you have a friend, and imagine that you seeing this friend after a long time. And when you have a conversation, imagine that you ask a lot of questions to this person, and the person is going to feel different, and this person may walk away. And in future, he may avoid talking to you also. That can also happen. So avoid conversation stoppers at all costs. I know it is difficult, but try your best. And next one is questions that answers themselves. Like for this example, you want help, don't you? Because they have the word help is already there in the question. So avoid questions like that when you have an interaction with your child. So there are some better ways to lead a conversation by, so some of which is like asking better questions. Give choices when you have a conversation. Do you want to eat apple, or do you want or orange? So give options so the child can say this or that. And ask questions which can create child's curiosity. Oh, where is the cat? I can't find the cat. Let's look for it. Or something like, oh, who's knocking the door? Is it daddy? I don't know. Who is that? Who could that be? So ask questions which can create child's curiosity. Extend our child's thinking. Maybe when you see something, it can be on the YouTube or on the TV or whatever you watch, you can ask questions, what is happening, rather than just let the child watch the TV. You can ask questions, what is seeing, what is happening in the picture or in the scenario, whatever it is. So the next one can be ask questions which can create anticipation. Oh, let's see what's going to happen now. They are going to have a race. Let's see who's going to win. So these are some of the questions, better way to ask questions. Not just that, there are other ways also we can lead a conversation, which is called declarative communication. Try to adopt this in your conversation from now on, because this brings more value. The children will also like this, because the children are going to listen to you more from what is happening. Okay, so one of which is commenting, like, you can comment what you are doing or what is happening. And then comes a declaration that, okay, I want to play snake and ladder. Maybe instead of asking, do you want that? Or do you want to play snake and ladder? So maybe another one is prediction, like, I think dad is going to win. And next one is shared narrative. One example is that, what should we do if we can't get the ice cream? So then child can say, okay, maybe we can try maybe pizza. So instead of asking, what do you want to eat? So there is always a better way to lead a conversation. So now we are going to see how we can help the child in terms of where the child's level is. And I've put different stages here. maybe your child can be in level 1, level 2, level 3, or level 4. And respective of what level is this level your child is, or then we can have options, we have strategies to help your child. And these are different stages of communication level a child can have. The first level is a non-intentional communicator, where the child does not send message directly to the partner and or the parent. So the parent need to understand what the child is trying to say. Let's say, for example, the child is standing at the door and trying to turn the knob. And instead of the child pointing at the door, asking it to make the door open, the child is just turning the door or turning the knob of the door. So the parent need to understand, okay, I think that he wants to go out. So the parent need to understand what the child is trying to say. The next phase is a requester. In a requester is a child who begins to request mostly for requesting something, maybe grabbing the person, pointing at things, or maybe looking at the object, or it can be protesting by moving away or maybe pushing things. So child is beginning to communicate better as a requester. And then comes the budding communicator. A budding communicator is a child who is the next level of a requester, where the child uses communication for various purposes like greeting, asking questions, requesting help. And then comes the communication partner, which is the next level of budding communicator. Child using communication for all other purpose, like the child can say future events, the child can talk about the past, the child can talk about its feelings. And the child can say, Mommy, do you remember yesterday where we went? And you remember the cat we saw? It was a beautiful cat, right? So the child can talk about the past events and the future events and feelings. So the child is communicating more for various purpose. Okay, so these are some of the strategies we are going to look at. If the child is a non-intentional communicator, where I've explained it before. So try to add more high interesting activities. Like, most of the time I have seen that children like sensory plays and let's say like water play, sand play. Those are some activities we can include the child in. Like I said before, remember, we need to keep this in mind. The first thing we are trying to create is attunement. So to create an attunement, which is the core of the sphere, we need to find activities which are high interesting for the child. So, and also we need to take consideration of the child's interest, what the child like to play. Each child is different. Maybe child A like to play with cars, child B like to play with puppets or maybe dolls. So we need to keep the child's interest also in mind. And any kind of communication attempt the child create, we need to acknowledge. It can be from the body language. For example, when the child plays, if the child moves away, you need to understand that the child doesn't want to play anymore. Don't grab the child, make the child sit, come on, let's play again. So that is not a good idea to do. So be sensitive and interpret the child's behavior. So next comes a requester. In a requester, like you saw that the child is beginning to request more for things. Let's help the child to request more in our games, like people games, like peekaboo, or let's say chase, or we can be any other people. Bubbles can be another people game activity, or tickles. In high interesting activity, let's expect the child to request more. And so when you do that, in this phase, let's help the child to ask, pick up answer through choices. You can give choices, let the child pick up, because again, we are working on request, and let the child say what the child wants. And help the child to use the learned request in other situations also. For example, like let's say the child likes to walk up stairs with the dad, and before every time the child walk up the stairs, the child says up. And father says, yes, up, let's walk up all the way. And the father waits for the child. And the child again shows the ladder, the stairs, and says up. And the father says, yeah, let's go up again, up. So the child learned to say up in this scenario. And one day the child is going to a mall, and the father waits at the beginning, at the end, the starting of the escalator. And the father waits and the father points at the escalator and the child says up. So this is what is meant by learned request. So when a child uses a skill in one scenario, let us help the child to use the learned skill in other scenarios also. So in that way, the child can replicate more and do that with other people also. And when you interact with someone or with the child, try to comment or try to give a statement of what is happening so the child can also learn from you. So for example, the mom says juice when she's about to pour her son juice in a glass. So when you label an actions and pictures during on pictures or events, eventually the child is also going to name things and ask for things. So that's what we want to do. So in a budding communicator phase, again, try to use more people games and give more choices for your child. So you want to have big tickle or small tickle, and you can ask yes or no questions, and you can ask WH questions. And when you communicate with your child at this phase, or irrespective of which phase, try to make it grammatical as possible, because that's what the child is going to learn. So instead of saying open box, try to tell the child open the box. I've seen that because we want the child to learn it quickly. So we try to simplify it as much as possible. So, but that is not a right way to do. So make it grammatical, but yet simple and short. Try to add that in your interaction. The next one is add unexpected in your games. Like let's say that you're playing a chase between your son or a daughter, and they like to play each other, like they like to do that a lot of times. And when you see something, oh, look at that flower, the yellow flower, isn't that beautiful? And then you continue to do that for some time. After, let's say, one day, after a few weeks, and when you play again, we are expecting the child to say, oh, look, daddy, a flower. We are expecting the child to say that. So add some unexpected factors in your game, so create that communication interaction. So last phase is the communication partner. When a child reaches the communication partner phase, we are expecting the child to communicate more with other children. So like I said before, experience is the factor we are trying to create now. So when the child interact with more children, we are trying to help the child to have better social skills and social communication skills. And so this is something we can also try, maybe play dates with other children, or interaction with other children at your community. Or so this may be taking a child with your, meet your friend and have the child to meet with your friends' children, something like that. So you can try to adopt this when the child reaches the communication partner phase. Also, when a child reaches communication partner phase, most likely the child is going to copy what you are going to say. So be careful at what you're going to say, what your child. So let's say a mother and the child is having an interaction, and in that morning, they can't find their dog. The dog's name is Caesar. And the dog likes to run away in the morning. Maybe the dog likes to go outside. The mother says, where is Caesar? And this happens quite often. And maybe one day the child might ask the mother, where is Caesar? So the child is trying to copy the mother, or the child is trying to learn from the mother. So ask questions, use comments in a right way, grammatical way, so the child can also model it from you. Then the next one is add some stupidity in your game or in your conversation. This might sound very stupid, but this is a very wonderful tool which I use in my sessions also. Like this is what I have done a couple of times with my children in sessions. So let's say the child has finished the session and they are going out. I purposely hide one of the child's one of the shoe of the child, and I'll keep it somewhere. And of course, the child will look for the shoe, and I'm expecting the child to come and ask me, or some kind of gesture to show me that he's looking for for his shoe, and we will begin to search here and there, and we'll say, I can't find it here. Let's go there and let's see if it's behind the cupboard, and we'll carry out a conversation in that way. So add some stupidity in your game or your conversation to make it more interesting and keep it going. So children love compliments. Add compliments whenever possible. For example, when you have a book reading activity, when the child reads something or point at something, say that, oh, that's good. You found the cat. Oh, or we can say, good reading. Wow, good job. Add compliments in your activity, which will boost the child's self-confidence and self-esteem, which will again support this interaction with you more. And imagine that if a child a parent or a person who doesn't give much compliment to the child wouldn't be interested to talk to the person or interact with the person. The child will prefer with the person who acknowledge, or a person who gives compliments to the person. So keep that in mind. So this is one example that I want to share here. This is a conversation script which between a father and a child. So they're having a chase activity, and let's see how the conversation is going. The father comments saying that you are a fast runner, a compliment. I'm a slow runner. Sam comments, Papa is a fast runner. Father asks a question, do you like to play chase? Sam answers, yes, I like chase. Father comments, I feel thirsty. Sam says, I feel thirsty. So looks like the child is also feeling thirsty. Father asks, do you want water or juice? And this, if you see that the conversation will keep on, will continue after they might drink whatever they want to drink. So if you see here, you can have a conversation without asking much questions. You can use the declarative communication examples which I've showed before. You can use those strategies to keep it going. And one rule I can tell you will be that, when you have a conversation, 80%, let the 80% of the interaction be declarative communication and 20% to be questions. So sometimes it goes the other way. Most of the time it's going to be 80% questions and 20% declarative, which is not a good idea to do. So some of the tips I want to share here is that have variety of play activities in your day-to-day life, so which can help the child to have more interaction with you. From interaction, we can create more conversation. And also, one thing I can say is that most of the times parents have asked me like what kind of toys they can add or use. I would say use limited number of toys, and when you reduce the number of toys in your activity, it improves the creativity of the child. So which is again will boost the child's imagination and also child's conversation skills and interaction. So limit the number of toys in your activity. And also you can add a lot of play activities like people game activities, peekaboo, chasing, and tickles. Those kind of activities can be great choice. Add joint book reading in your activity. Again, keep in mind that don't ask too many questions. Say more about the declarative communications. Do have declarative communication more in your interaction. Also, when you do all these things, keep in mind this factor. Imagine this or remember this fear, because this is the basis of all interaction or the conversation that you're going to have with your child. Include your child in your house chores, and let's say like you can sweep the floor, and let's say you can make a sandwich. Let's say when you make a sandwich, you can say, oh, I can't find the knife. I wonder where it is. So maybe the child will also try to look for it, and the child must say, Mommy, there it is. Or say you can have a conversation in your day-to-day activities. It's not like we're making the child to do activities. I'm saying that we can have a conversation. And also same way we can take your child for shopping. Let's say you same thing. We're going to have the child. We're going to make a sandwich at home, and we need to buy things for the sandwich. And the mother can say that I think we have bread, we have lettuce. I think what else? I don't know what else we need. And the child might say cheese. Oh, but I think we have cheese. Oh yeah, something like that. So we can have a keep the conversation going in that shopping activity. So this was just an idea that parents can try. But again, so the next point is what I want to say: add more declaration, add more declarative kind of communication in your interaction. Less questions. Presume competence. Presume competence means, this is one example I can tell you about presume competence. In one session which I had with a mother and a child, I had a box full of animals, plastic animals, and the box was closed. And the child was trying to open the box. And this child can talk and child can verbally say what the child wants. But the mother jumped in and said, "Do you want help?" Instead of waiting for the child to say that what the child can do. So don't think that the child can't do. Let's believe and let's support the child, that let's believe that the child is competent, and let's support that the child can be confident enough to communicate with you. So presume competence is a big factor, and is one of the tips that I want to share it with you. Use of AAC is something is another important factor we need to have. Most of the time, like we think that conversation can only happen when the other person or the child is verbal, which is completely wrong. And we can have conversation if the child has limited language skills, or if the child is minimally verbal. And you can use other forms of communication to start and keep the conversation going with the other person. So most of the parents, they think that is not possible, but we can. So I would suggest you to watch a webinar which we did last week by my colleague Sarah. She presented about the use of AAC, how we can use AAC, and how important it is to use AAC in the child's communication development. And yeah, so please go watch that. And the last two factors will be modeling. So modeling is one important factor, another important factor, because if you don't adopt these core values, if you're not using these core values with your, if you're not adopted these values, the child is not going to learn it from you. So I would suggest you all to adopt this, make it as a habit. When this becomes more habit, it becomes more unconscious for you, and it becomes automatically from you, and the child is going to learn from you. You don't have to consciously make an effort every time when you do that. So I would suggest that, if imagine that if you don't have these values and interact, if you're not giving a person, if you're a person, you're not giving turns to talk, if you're a person, you're not listening and observing the partner when you interact, the child is also going to learn that. So try to use those core values, adopt these core values in your day-to-day life, so that we can keep the conversation. Let the child also learn it from you. Finally, consistency. When all these factors are not practiced consistently in day-to-day life or day-to-day practice, things are not going to change. So if you want to see good changes, we need to practice these core values in our day-to-day life consistently over a period of time. So it becomes a habit, so the child can learn it from you. So consistency is a very big factor we need to keep in mind. So these are the 10 tips I would recommend all of you to have and follow. And but that's it for this presentation. So I think we can open up for question.
Hi, just wanted to ask, is there some AAC available in Hindi?
AAC available in Hindi?
Yeah.
Yes. So there are different platforms, like we have PlayTalk, we have Avaz. There are other different kind of PlayTalks apps. And these apps, they have option for different languages like Hindi, Tamil, Malayalam. One is Avas. Avas has the capability to use different languages.
Okay. See, my child has a lot of words, nouns, and other basic stuff. He has text, labeling, and all. And he also has like some communication. He loves some particular stuff, which he would easily ask
Nice.
toys or some
Mhm.
those things. He would come and ask us. And if
Mhm.
we like, he would come to me for a small pig toy, say. He would come and or maybe a dog toy. He would come and say dog. I would say, mama, mujhe dog de do. He would repeat that, the entire thing. So
Mm.
which you think is good for my child? He's 4 years old, by the way.
So he's repeating what you're saying instead of asking what he wants.
He would ask for things, but I want him to slowly come to mama dog de do, instead of just coming and grabbing me and saying dog. And he does that sometimes for some frequent things, like nowadays he's liking egg. In evening, he knows this is the time to eat egg. He would come to me and say egg. Then I would say
Okay,
egg
nice.
or mama egg de do. He would sometimes he would come to me, and in a good mood he would just directly come and would say mama egg de do directly,
Okay.
instead of this is communication, instead of
Okay.
the thing, words. So which should I use it, or should I just go for the
Should I
convention?
use? Okay, so I want to ask, like, so does it happen often with other time also?
You mean this communication?
Yeah.
Yeah, only for his desired stuff. If I would say, let's go out and go to a park, I would say, chalo, park mein chalte hain. And I would go downstairs and come out and go towards car. He would run towards the nearby park saying Jhula, because he
Okay.
loves swing in this park. And I want to take him to some other park where there are less of swings and he does more of activities.
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
he would communicate in those ways. Or he would say,
Okay.
or whatever, edibles, yes, toys, definitely. For these things, he would say, if his father is not home, he would say, Papa, Papa. I mean, such kind of communication is there.
Okay. So when you interact, when you have a, like when he said Jula, uh, can you add another word to that? So when you add another word, can he pick up that and say that with you or imitate that with you?
Yeah, when he is on the swing, when he finally gets to sit on the swing, I would say, Mama, Jhula Jhulna hai. So he would say,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
That's okay. So if he has one word, I would suggest, like, let's make it into 2 words. So that is something like a big push for him to do. So let's make it into 2 words, Jula Chalo or Jula Dedo, something like that, instead of make it into too many words. So let's try to add another word, expand that utterance into one more word. So like with repeated exposure, then you can expect that he will say that other word also, Jula Chalo or Jula Dedo, something like that.
exactly.
And once you do that, we can slowly add another word also, make it more grammatically. So we can add another word. So 3 and 4, slowly we can work upon that. So don't jump from one word to forward in expansion. That's one suggestion I would like to give you.
Abhishek, I have two more things to ask. One is,
Yes.
I'm taking language therapy sessions from a famous lady, and at the same time, I'm taking ABA sessions from, again, a different center. Both of them are doing separate, I mean, their own speech therapies. The language therapy therapist is telling him to say "mujhe jhula de do" from almost 8 to 10 months, and still he has not come to that. I had my
Okay.
is right in the beginning. I wanted ma'am to start with words initially and very slowly add 2 or 3 things which I had heard,
Mm.
that
Mm.
you know. Should I start taking one session instead of these two different people? One, and second thing I want to ask is, I someday I need to shift from this country, I guess. Like people say, being self-dependent is not very easy in our country. Sorry, I'm saying this, but you can understand. A mother is asking this question. Sorry to
That's
if I've
okay.
yeah. So I want to shift to English now. When he's 4.2 years old, should I make that mistake or that step, or should I just continue with Hindi and forget about English?
Okay, so the first question you are asking, for that first question, I want to give you some one suggestion. So if he's working, if the therapist is working for some time to work on increasing the utterance, and if it's not really helping the child, I would suggest that then we can definitely add AAC as a component so the child can use that to communicate to us. So I would suggest that one. And the second question, I think you were asking about if you can change the language. Um, I would say there's nothing wrong. The child can learn two languages. The child need to be if there's a possibility, let the child learn two languages. And this is a common myth which is happening across the world. Like, if the child has one language, and if the child is exposed to another language, the child has the earlier language will be affected, or the child will have a delay. So which is false. So I would say that try let the child learn two languages, and you can also uh, add English as a factor. So at home, yeah, yes, ma'am.
Should I keep him more inclined towards Hindi? Because in general at home, basically when the grandmother shifted with us, we shifted to Hindi for him. But now grandmother doesn't communicate much with him throughout the day. It's like some limited communication. So it's to some extent my choice. And I also want to decide which school I want to put him into, because there are very limited number of schools which use Hindi as a primary language. Even the teachers communicate primarily in English. So should I choose a school where mainly Hindi is the basic communicating language at this stage, so that if he goes to the teacher and says, like susu jana hai, so teacher does understand? Or should I just push him to say toilet, toilet, toilet? I mean, that is also a big decision for me now.
Okay,
I
so
what
go on, ma'am.
is the primary thing now in
Yeah.
in school and at home?
Okay, so I think Sherin ma'am has something to share. Yeah, ma'am, please go ahead.
Well, there were quite a few questions there that you asked. And you know what, sometimes the child gets confused when there are two different approaches or three different approaches being used. And it is good to stick to one kind of approach to lessen the confusion that the child is going through, to learn better. So when you ask, should I use this and that approach, my suggestion would be to stick to one. Now, the other one is in terms of, Abhishek mentioned simple language stimulation strategies, not to jump to, if a child is not able to pick up a whole sentence, rather than memorizing the sentence and giving it to you as a scripted language the next time, help him understand what these words mean by building it up. This is called an analytical way of picking up language, understanding the words that come, rather than saying, Mama, give me this. Mama, give me this, then becomes one whole chunk. And that's called gestalt learning, where we learn as a chunk. Now, if your child is able to pick up one word at a time, then add on with whatever is spontaneous, and then get them to two, and then add on, and so on and so forth. With respect to languages, as Abhishek just mentioned, there's a lot of research is saying that, you can introduce another language too, that's not a problem, but you have to think long run. You have to always think, what's my child going to get exposed to more? And if you're thinking of shifting countries, for example, you have to think, wait, he needs to have a foundation to be able to manage in a new environment. So what is the easiest thing you could do? Pair language at home with the new language that you're speaking in Hindi, and pair it up with English. So then he starts understanding that this and this mean the same thing. And that's how you build on the receptive language of it. So there are a lot of things that you could do, but always think long run. Don't think short term in terms of immediately what does he need. In the future, what does he need? Because that's what we want to build on from now. For a child so young, whose brain is so plastic, they can pick up information that you're giving, as long as it's not taught to them by sitting down and making them go through exercise of just tell me this, do this, that, and all of that. So that's where Abhishek mentioned looking at our previous webinars and looking at how can you connect to the child and build that language a little bit more. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Can I, sorry for lengthening so much, last half minute, please. You told me, from what I got from you, are these kind of communications okay for child? Like, नहाई नहाई कहाँ करते हैं? Child would say bathroom में. Kitchen में क्या बनाते हैं? खाना. I mean, these question answer sort of stuff I see it is not a great idea. It's putting off the child from communicating.
I'll ask you this. If I were asking you this through the day, will you like it?
No, not at all.
So
And that
why
kind
would
of
our children?
speed.
Right? It's just simple as that. If you won't like it and you won't connect with a person, when you're asked this 20 questions every day,
Mhm.
and that 20 questions become sometimes the same 20 questions every day, would you be happy about it? No, the children won't be happy about it either. You're thinking from a perspective, or professionals or other parents are thinking from a perspective, I'm trying to teach them this concept. But you
Mhm.
know what? There are multiple ways to do it when you're having a natural back and forth. And that's what Abhishek mentioned, non-verbal to pre-verbal to verbal. We jump into verbal and we give them scripted language. Giving them scripted language will make it just a rote memory that they will spit out whenever they can. It will not go into the analysis of how do I use this language effectively.
Yes, ma'am.
That is what is important. So use natural back and forth rather than testing them. Stop testing them. It's my suggestion.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, can we take online speech therapy from you? That
Yes,
is
we
possible.
can. We have, as long as we have slots, so you can get in touch with us and we can see from there. We have our social media handles all put across on the chat. So connect with us and we can see. Pranjali, go ahead with the next question, please.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next question. Do we correct a child when in conversation with grammatical errors immediately, or when the mistake is made? Because this is like interrupting. But if we delay the correction, the child would not be able to connect to the situation. So, do we correct or not?
So I would say that instead of correcting right away, that model it first. You do that in your interaction so the child can learn it from you. So that's some one strategy I would say. Like when you're correcting, what can happen is that the child will think, oh, this is happening every time. When someone corrects me all the time, I don't like to talk to that person. So I will feel defensive. The child will move back, or the child will step back. So the child wouldn't like that interaction with that person. So I would say that model it. You use that in your communication. Use it as a statement in a more grammatical way, so that the child can learn it from you. Yes, we need to be patient, but model it, model it, model it. So eventually, the child will also get a chance to learn it from you. It depends on the child's pace. So let's do that way.
Next question is, my child therapist says that my child is have language but not the concept. So how can we develop the concept?
That question is like, can you explain a little bit more about that question? Because
The
it's
question is incomplete.
I think it's just about building concepts, and I'm just going to push in here quickly and say, build concepts in a natural way. You want to teach hot and cold, make them feel hot and cold. What hot and cold is? Make natural situations where you can teach concept. Don't teach them through flashcards. Please stop teaching your children through flashcards, because flashcards are 2D and make no sense. Okay, that's a thing that I would always say, and I'm very passionate about this. I mean, I used it, I know it because of personal experience. I have done the flashcards, and they are useless when you are trying to teach a concept. Teach concept through life.
So to add that,
Yeah,
the experience part. So let the child learn it through experience, though the child learns better with experience.
go ahead, Pranjali.
Okay. Next question. My son is at non-intentional communicator stage. If he is hungry, he goes near the dining table and stands there. That moment, if I ask what you want, he will show the gesture. He is not initiating. How can I help him to request?
Okay, I think he's already kind of he's requesting. He's looking at he's standing there at the table or dining table, and he's pointing. I think so. He's already kind of requesting what he
So the
wants.
child is requesting after the parent has asked, like, what do you want? And then the child is gesturing. He's not initiating. He's just standing there.
Okay, so yes, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's the thing. What the parent needs to do, don't talk. If you want the child to initiate, you got to wait. You go to them, get down to their level and wait. So that's why I meant just did this action. It's like, don't talk and ask, what do you want? Just take a step back and wait. And Abhishek mentioned that observe, wait, listen to what's happening. Observe what your child is doing. Now wait, take a step back. Don't go into what do you want. Tell me what you want. Show me this, point to this is why I did this. Abhishek, go ahead. Sorry.
So, yeah.
One is my son throws tantrums when he's hungry or sleepy. How can I teach him to communicate?
Okay, so can you ask the question again one more time?
My son throws tantrums when he's hungry or sleepy. How can I teach him to say that he's hungry or sleepy?
Okay, so I would suggest you have to look at the body language first. There are two things here. So look at the body language, what the child is the child is trying to show you. Be an observant and be sensitive enough to look at that, to understand the response back to the child. Another one will be that add other modes of communication would be a great choice, like AAC, so the child can say that to you, so that we won't reach that tantrum level or that meltdown phase. So we can prevent it before that using another mode of communication. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Hello, ma'am. I just want to ask one question. My son, he is 5 years old. He is having his vocabulary but not able to form a sentence. So how would I help him?
Was that for me? I'm sorry, you said ma'am.
Yeah, it's for you, ma'am.
Okay.
For both of you, like sir and ma'am. Anybody can answer, but yes.
He has vocabulary, but he doesn't have sentences, probably because you focused a lot on the nouns and getting him to understand words. Now,
Yes.
how do you get him to focus on the rest of the words is model it out in simple phrases first, build on what he knows. Instead of trying to get a full sentence out of him, model from a single to a two-word, from a two-word to a three-word, from a three-word. So I can go from water, drink water, water, want to drink water, I want to drink water, and so on and so forth. You can go, I'm really thirsty, I want to drink water, right? We can build up on the sentence level, because that's when they start analyzing, oh, this is how we put words together.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Instead of just teaching them an entire sentence, when you go from a single word to the full sentence, there are children who pick up because they're gestalt learners. They learn as chunks, they will learn the full chunk, and they will use it also well. But there are children also who are analytical learners who will learn a certain way. And when you build on their basics, going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, then they know how to build that sentence up.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you.
To add that, I can give you another suggestions, like use more play activities, like written play activities. So let's say you must be doing that, feeding the animal or feeding a doll or something. So when you do that, comment what you're trying to say. So maybe let's say drink water, or the puppy drink water, or maybe now it's your turn. So to maybe I give the chance to the child to also to try something. Maybe the child say drink water, or puppy drink water. So we are giving an experience through a play activity, so the child know what is child need to say. So introduce those concepts through play activities. That's the best way to do. Like again, experience through flashcards doesn't work, through experience. And making the child just repeat words also is not going to help you.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Thank you.
All right. I can see we have a few more questions, but we also have a time constraint. I think we'll stop here. Abhishek, I'll hand over to you.
No, ma'am, actually, I have one question, if you have time.
Sorry.
We are way past time. Actually, we'll take your question. You can send us a question on chat, and we'll be answering other questions on our YouTube channel.
So if you have questions, I know I can see questions. We can see lots of questions. There's always questions when it comes to speech and language. There's a whole lot of them. Please drop us a message with your question, and we will try to answer it. It's just that we have another session to jump into, and that is why
Yeah.
I'm trying to limit it right
Please
now.
send us a message.
Yeah, please do drop us. You can drop us a WhatsApp message. You can drop us an email. You can drop us anything. If you have questions, we will be very happy to answer them. All the previous webinars, whatever questions were unanswered, what we have done is we have taken those questions and answered it on YouTube as the question from the parent and what PlayStreet says. All right, so
Sure.
please do feel free to ask your questions, put it down before we close the meeting, so that we have we have access to all these questions. Don't, especially those who have raised their hands, please put your questions down on the chat and we will get back to you for sure.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining the presentation. I hope you could all learn something from today's presentation, and it was definitely a lovely interaction with all the parents. And so this the series of this webinar, like for some portion, we are ending today, and the next set of webinar will be starting next year. So until next year, so we will need to close. So we also will see you in the next session in next year in January. All right.